is a beautiful 75-degree day in Southern California. The crowd filing into the Forum in Inglewood.
Inside the Forum at the corner of Manchester and Prairie.
Whether you're kicked back in the lounge or grinding in the film room, the block is always hot for the Lakers.
The Los Angeles Lakers are the world champions of basketball.
It's the Great Western Forum.
Chased out by James. Blocked by LeBron.
The Magic, he pivots, a 360 turn. He's around one, he's around two. Magic to Green underneath.
On the ball to Shaq, screen.
A windmill. They're going crazy at the fabulous Forum.
Hosted by Anthony Irwin, Pete Zayas, and Jovan Buha.
It's showtime.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, into the Great Western Forum. I'm Anthony Irwin. Lakers insider now for Offside. I got to start getting used to saying that. Joined on this fine Monday night, you guys will be watching this Tuesday morning, by Pete Zayas of Laker Film Room, by Jovan Buha of Buha's Block. Guys, we have made it. We are officially here on opening night of the NBA season. Pete, Jovan, nobody got canceled. I was going to say we could open the show with thoughts on Russell Westbrook and
what's going on here?
Ron James and Will Smith.
This is not what I signed up for. Peanut's off to a good start. We're tangled up here. This is off to we're already off the rails. Peanut,
Jovan, how you holding up, bud?
I'm good. I'm doing great. This is the second best day of the year, with the best day of the year being Tuesday night when basketball officially starts.
I cannot believe how long preseason took and the amount of time I spent wringing my hands over the Lakers apparently treating it like an extended vacation. Pete, are you ready to get things going here?
Absolutely. Let's go for some real games. Let's try to win them. I'm
what a
very
concept,
excited.
Trying to win. We'll go ahead and dive on in. So the way this is going to work is the first half of the show, Pete, Jovan, and myself, we're going to look back on training camp and frame the second half of the show with that. The second half of the show, Jovan, Pete, and I have picked out three storylines that we are all the most curious about heading into the season. And we will throw to our guests tonight, who are going to be Raj Chipalu and Khobi Price. Also Harrison. I always forget about Harrison. I always forget to send him the invitation too, but I always forget about him. But yeah, we will go ahead and start. Pete, I want to start here with you because I got some blowback on my show from like the live commenters when I was recording recently. And it's like, why do you care so much about wins and losses in training camp? And why do you care so why does it bother you so much that the Lakers are prioritizing health and stuff like that? And I have felt kind of like this is usually the case, but I have felt kind of out on a ledge on my own here in my distaste for how preseason has gone. And to me, it just comes down to habits. And what further gaslights me in my belief on that front is JJ Redick telling us that the habits really, really matter. And that dissidence between his messaging and the Lakers' actions, that's really kind of gotten under my skin. Have you kind of gone through preseason and training camp the same way, or do you think I'm making too big a deal out of this?
No, I mean, it's a matter of degree for sure. But, I think that obviously they prioritize health. That said, I was racking my brain. I was driving today and I was thinking of the teams that have won championships and what I could remember of their training camps. And the only ones that had sort of a low intensity start to the season that I can think of were defending champions, right? Groups and cores that had won championships before. So for example, the beginning of 2001, which is a legendary Lakers team, was not that great. Like they were slow to start off. Shaq took a while to get back. It was not a great start
Company
to the
time.
season. Yeah, was that the company time season? I don't remember. It all blends together in some respects after all these years. But it just wasn't. It wasn't how it ended. But those are the exceptions to the rule. The teams that actually end up being very good, usually, like they let you know fairly early on with their basketball. That said, we're going into the first game. LeBron's the only guy that's out. Kleba is questionable, but it looks like we're going to be good to go. Obviously, we're waiting for him, but relatively speaking, they're in good health. So I'm with you. I feel like the Lakers are behind Jovan, and that's a concern of mine, but I also certainly understand the end goal there.
I think my bigger issue is not necessarily how they approach the preseason in terms of being conservative with certain guys, right? If a guy gets nicked up in practice, you want to be careful. You don't especially seeing how many guys it seemed to affect. It was at one point like almost half of the available roster was dealing with something, right? So,
yeah,
okay, I can understand that. I think my bigger issue was sort of the actual on-court product that we saw, and this whole preseason was framed, training camp in the preseason was framed as, we finally have time to practice together. We finally have time to build an offense around Luka and build a defense around some of the limitations with Luka and Austin and LeBron together, and just figure out who's going to be the fourth and fifth starters and what's the rotation look like and this and that. And I feel like we didn't get great answers, and some of the answers we got were not what we expected or not necessarily promising. And it just felt like in general, again, there was a way, and it was a narrow path, but there was a way they could have approached things this in a similar manner to how they approach things, but with far more organization and I think a bit of a better process. But I feel like the on-court product that we saw for most of the preseason aligned with some of the fears of like the group not having a certain baseline level of just chemistry, continuity, understanding how to play with one another. They looked often like a group that was just kind of thrown out there for the first time. And it kind of kept happening for most of the 6 preseason games. So like even the starting group in the Sacramento game, plus 5 and 10 minutes together against Sacramento's like B/C squad, I did not come away like super impressed by that group together. So I think we have a lot more questions than answers with this group, but some of the early returns I think have not been what I think they were envisioning going into the start of the season.
Yeah, that starting group from that Sacramento Kings game and the starting group that we're going to see later tonight, I think is kind of a perfect example of some of my concerns with how we saw them approach this training camp and preseason in general, in that this is the kind of lineup that you throw out there for a little bit and you see what it looks like in like one of your earlier preseason games. And you kind of, over the course of preseason, after you throw that group out there, maybe that is because it does align itself with how JJ Redick kind of sees basketball, right? Gabe shot the leather off of the ball throughout training camp and preseason. He's an extra ball handler out there. He adds a foot speed element to the offense specifically, and somewhat to the defense too. But I think he cares a little bit more about having somebody who can pierce the shell of the defense. That is a group that, if that is how JJ kind of sees the game or sees how he wants the Lakers to play, that's a group that you would throw out there in the first or second preseason game and then eventually kind of tailor back. And you realize, okay, yeah, we might need Jared Vanderbilt's athleticism and length. We might need Marcus Smart's point of attack or just overall defensive acumen. We might need this. We might need that. But the problem is, because the dress rehearsal was the only game that I would argue we actually saw the Lakers really care about preseason games, we didn't get to see that process. Now that process has to take place in actual games that matter during a stretch, right? By the way, Pete, right? That they need to win some of these games.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. And so there's validity in not starting Vando. I do want to throw that out there, that I don't think that there's an answer that's like a glare. To me, it's still Smart is the best overall basketball player. It's not so much point of attack defense, but it's execution of the defense. He had 4 steals in that game that you're referring to. He also drew a couple of illegal screens, had a couple of charges. He turned them over individually a good 6, 7 times. And so, while also showing a level of offensive acumen where a play breaks down and he, is able to make something out of nothing there, that I think that that still makes more sense to me than Gabe does because of the size issues. That said, Golden State is one of the very few teams where actually starting Gabe and playing Gabe big minutes is like one of the only teams where I'm like, yeah, remember the 23 playoffs with starting Dennis, Lonnie coming off of the bench. They're just the nature of how Golden State is. And one way that we beat them was we really attacked Steph, but we needed a good enough offensive player in that spot to do it. You know what I mean? So I hate going super small. And that is, you were talking about the way Redick sees basketball. It's ultimately why I don't agree with the brain trust of the team, is that I feel like they're always going to choose spacing and shooting over rebounding and physicality and size and all that, Jovan. But I also don't want to paint it as obviously Vando should start because he kind of distorts the game a bit.
Well, this is now 3 coaches really quickly. This is now 3 coaches, right? 3 different coaches. Frank was kind of round peg in a squared hole into it, right? Where it was like, hey, we want to go small. And Frank was like, no.
Yeah.
He was like, here's a roster where you have to go small. And then Darvin had to go small. And now JJ has to go small. We do it is worth noting the common denominator. Sorry, Jovan, I cut you off.
No, I'm in agreement. Like, I think I'm a little, I've been kicking myself because I kind of fell for the Vando trap because I see it anytime I did an episode a few weeks ago breaking down why I thought Marcus should be the 5th starter. And I got some people, a bunch of people were commenting Vando should be the 5th guy. And the one thing I've continually said with Vando is I just don't think JJ fully trusts him. And I think going back to last season, the stat I've referenced a million times at this point is Vando played in 36 games. He only played 20 or more minutes 6 times. And in all 6 of those games, at least one, if not multiple, front court starters were out. So, and then you look at it post Luka trade with the healthy rotation, Vando averaged 14 minutes a game. So he was actually closer to being the 9th man than the 5th starter in JJ's rotation last year. And when we get our first look at what this group looks like with an actual rotation and like a little bit of stakes of just seeing a dress rehearsal, he's back to the bench and he's the 8th man again, and really more so a co-8th man with Jackson, where both times, first and third quarter he comes in, it's with the big, and it's after Smart and LaRavia have both checked in. So I feel like we got a little... maybe hoodwinked is a strong word, but like, because he started the first 3 games. We got bamboozled. He started the first 3 games with Rui, and it was like, okay, maybe is it going to be Ayton, Rui, Vando with no LeBron? Like I thought that was the way it was trending, but clearly that was not it. But I would say the argument for starting Gabe for now, I agree with it for the Golden State game. Longer term, I do not agree with it. And I think all the points for starting Gabe also apply to starting Smart. And I think he's just a more versatile defender. He's a bigger defender. Like Gabe, I think is fine maybe as like a secondary perimeter guy. But right now, he's their best perimeter defender in that starting group. And he's also 6'2". And I think just looking at that, when teams have been able to get Ayton out away from the basket, it's a layup line around the basket. So I just think right now that their collective size and physicality with that quartet is nowhere near where it needs to be. And it's okay against Golden State because of the stylistic play, but they play that lineup against Minnesota. I am pretty concerned.
The other thing that struck me while I was watching this training camp in preseason as it played out was there is a hope to me that a team would enter a season with LeBron James and with Luka Doncic, and they would be really going for it. Right. And it's hard for me to square a team telling us that they're really, really going for it, but also starting Gabe Vincent on opening night, you know? And yeah, LeBron would be starting there or whatever, but even then Rui Hachimura starting out of position on opening night.
Who could they be starting instead though, that would make you not feel that way?
What's that? Oh, them using the first round pick during the summer to acquire the 5th starter, whoever that would have been. And like, again, I think they're trying to, successfully thread that needle of going for it to the extent that they can this year, while also maintaining flexibility for Giannis and stuff like that in the year after this one, or the offseason after this one. But the problem is when the Lakers put themselves within those parameters of going for it while also maintaining an eye for the future, they're inherently putting themselves at a bit of a disadvantage against those teams that are legitimately really going for it this year, right? Denver did trade a first rounder for their 5th starter in Cam Johnson. OKC returned everybody, right? And so, Pete, is that something that is that even a fair point, do you think, for me to make, noting, hey, yeah, you guys are telling us it's this thing, but your actions are kind of painting a different picture?
Yeah, I think it's fair to an extent. I also think that timing matters as well, and that there is wisdom in seeing where the team is at the trade deadline and how close they are. I think that they're. What's up, Jovan?
Jovan,
you know where
made
my
this
mind
point
went.
really, really well, so I'll let you make it.
Hold up.
No, when you said wisdom, I just I went to another land. Wisdoms and lessons.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Wisdoms.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
little PTSD. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we're talking starting small, and we're talking wisdoms and lessons. We're all pride. It's been a long off season.
So the first rounders.
Sorry.
No. So the first rounders, like, I think they're totally willing to, and Pelinka said this on the intro press conference that they did. They're totally willing to move it. It's for who and for what, and does it cost more now versus later, and is it worth it? Are we going to win a championship on the other side of it? Like, can we look at the roster and say that we are viably in that spot? And none of the names that I've heard that have been rumored for that have been like, oh yeah, we're a title team at the end of that. Like, I think it's prudent, maybe that's a better term to not trigger Jovan, to see where the team's at in February, and that's also when the prices are the best, when the deals actually get done. We saw a massive trade deadline this last season for the whole NBA that who's healthy? What does LeBron look like? There's so much uncertainty that I get where you're going from, and I do see them talking out of two sides of their mouth off of, this is something that used to drive me crazy. I used to ask, like, why are we messaging Vando's injury like this type stuff, where it's like you're leading people. They do stuff like this all the time. So yes, fair point, totally. But I also think that there's a lot of prudence in, seeing where the team's at.
Jovan, you've talked about, like, the point that I thought you were going to make when you started laughing about wisdoms and lessons was how, like, the Lakers tend to enter seasons with incomplete rosters with the notion that they are eventually going to address those things at the deadline, which then their timeline is off, right? Their NBA calendar is kind of off. And that's part of my point, part of my concern is that, like, we keep on getting on this treadmill. We keep on doing the same thing. And I guess a season where you have a LeBron James, where you have a Luka Doncic, especially a Luka who's looking the way that he does, this would have been the year for me to reset that calendar and kind of get more on the typical timeline that most teams that are really going for it operate off of. If you guys, like Pete, I'm perfectly cool with the pushback if you guys are disagreeing, but, like, to me, it's the timeline here that we're still doing this thing again, and it hasn't worked,
One point to that as well is that there might not be another year where they have this much undervalued contract. Like, Austin's going to cost a lot more next year. DeAndre Ayton is way better than an $8.3 million player. And that sort of, on paper, Jovan, is how you win a championship, is that your salaries add up. Like, the amount of player you get for the salaries that you pay exceed a certain amount, that, like, having Austin on the contract he's on, just some of the factors at play for the Lakers are just this year and not guaranteed to extend beyond that.
I think there are other things you could do, though. And this is where, like, of course, the low-hanging fruit here is making some type of trade for the 5th starter. Like, I've made that point before, that I feel like the ideal 5th starter that you slot next to Luka, Austin, LeBron, and Ayton is not on this roster. Like, whoever you pick as the 5th starter, there is a serious hole in the argument for them starting, and a serious hole in their fit next to the other 4, that I think the ideal player is not currently on this roster.
I agree.
But I also, there are other moves you can make, and you could make a counterpoint of like, keep the expiring contracts for the deadline, and maybe you cobble some of these together to bring in that fifth player or to help get to the salary for that fifth player. But there are smaller moves you could make to free up roster spots and to free up financial flexibility that they have not explored either going on. We could go back a couple years ago with the whole, like, Jackson ended up panning out, but like the Christian Wood, Cam Reddish stuff, that was pretty obvious that it was trending toward them eventually being waived or not really being a part of that roster. And instead of doing it in the offseason and maybe getting a shot at a guy like a Gary Trent, they end up waiting, and they did uncover Jordan Goodwin as a two-way guy. But like, I still think from a process perspective, they tend to be a little bit too passive, in my opinion. And having 3 straight off seasons with no trades, I just think is inexcusable. And there's really no justification to not, especially with some of the situations that they've had presented to them, or just the situations they've been in terms of the back end of the roster being, I still think, a bit of a mess here. And I don't trust beyond maybe player 10 on this team. And that's fine to have a nice 10-man rotation, but everyone's got to stay healthy. And then once you start getting into players 11 to 14, I think you have some real questions here that I would have liked to have seen them potentially address in the offseason. So I do agree in general, like, we now have this sample size of they prefer doing in-season trades because the price is supposed to be lower, although then that does disrupt continuity and rhythm and all that stuff. Also gives them a built-in excuse to then kick the can down the road and say, well, next training camp we'll be healthy and we'll get that continuity, and then they treat it as they just did.
Maybe even.
But it's tough, right? Because I also don't know who that player was, right? Like we could say Wiggins, that's maybe the one guy, but even then, depending on what that price was going to be, it was going to be an expensive price, right?
Pete's dog was very anti-Wiggins there, just pissed at it. But no, like the Wiggins thing, Jovan, you and I both reported on that, right? And Pete, to your point, it's one thing for me to sit here and whine and moan and complain about the Lakers not doing something, but it's also like I would have probably also lit them up if they traded Rui and Dalton and a first for Wiggins, which was what Miami continues to ask for to this day. Now, maybe that price drops, maybe it doesn't, or whatever. But yeah, I guess, let's move on really quickly. It's been kind of a negative first half of the segment here. There were things to like from training camp. And Pete, to me, the story is Luka. But what did you like? I'll let Pete handle his dogs, and then Jovan, I'll let you.
I'm sorry, please. I got somebody at the door knocking on the door. I'm sorry, I got to take care of the whole house.
Go for it. You're good. But Jovan, what did you like from training camp?
There are several things. So I have an episode that is slowly uploading right now that will be up by the time you hear this. But I mean, first and foremost, I think Luka and the way that he looked and the way that the offense looked with him. So preseason stats, 2 games, like all the appropriate caveats applied here. But LA had a 128 offensive rating with Luka on the floor, best offensive rating of all time. Of course, that's not going to apply to the season, but the offense looked really good with Luka on the floor in the 6 quarters that he played. So 128 offensive rating was the best mark on the team. They also were plus 10.6 points per 100 possessions better, or net rating. But with Luka on, no other Laker had a positive net rating for the entire preseason. So I found like they looked dramatically better in like an actual coherent team with Luka on the floor. So I think that's the thing to me to be most encouraged by. And then the other thing was DeAndre Ayton. I thought his defensive activity as a drop big could certainly be better playing up to touch and making some of those reads against guards and the way that they're approaching things offensively. But looking at like his numbers on like career low usage percentage for DeAndre Ayton, and again, we're talking very small samples here, but like I felt like he bought into a smaller role. But then you look at some of his playmaking, like 1.5 steals per 36 minutes in the preseason, 2.7 blocks. Both those marks would be career highs. Also 13.4 rebounds, which would also be a career high. So he did a lot of the dirty work in the preseason and bought into having fewer shots. The team could not throw a lob to save their life, but that will come in time, right? Like he's a different lob partner than Jackson Hayes is. But like I thought his buy-in overall, but particularly as a defender and just doing the dirty work, plus Luka in the offense, like those were the two things that to me were the most impressive overall.
Yeah, and this first little bit, like I've found myself like, oh, am I the most positive one? Like I've liked what I've seen so far, and you guys have hit on a couple of the main points between Ayton and the offense. Like the point about like there's a certain implicit, sometimes explicit, we're saying, oh, they didn't take this seriously in training camp and all of that.
Yeah, it's explicit.
Like the offense looks too good for it to be entirely that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some fundamentals there. Our screen setting is better at this time than it's been in years and years and years. Like what we look like with Luka on the floor, which I know it sounds like, oh yeah, of course we were 16th in offensive rating when Luka got here. There's just a level of they understand their 3-man actions. They're in year 2 of a lot of it, that it's crisper. They're making better reads. Ayton is a good screen setter. And then above all, Luka draws 2 a ton, just like all the superstars do. He draws second defenders a lot of the time. That Ayton in the short roll, it's interesting, like the Lively Gafford combo in Dallas. One of the things that impressed me about Lively was how good he was in the short roll for them. Now it was more as a passer and playmaker and all of that, but it was sort of both roles, right? And so if Luka's drawing 2, you don't need a lob threat right there. You're not going to get alley-oops to the rim. What's going to be open is that first pass. And Ayton's proficiency in mid-range as a scorer, like different ways, like Draymond is great in that 4-on-3, right? Where you can get downhill and make decisions and all of that, but he doesn't really have that mid-range jumper. You can kind of go about it in different ways. And so Ayton is getting penetration on the short roll. He's actually catching a lot of these in the paint. And what that does is it lengthens the closeout, how far the defense has to close out when he kicks it out to somebody else. And so him being a part 2 to Luka getting doubled on the perimeter and being proficient in that range, like he, to me, I'm excited about him and where his head's at. So the defensive stuff that Jovan was talking about, and then the rebounding with LeBron out, that's the biggest thing we're going to need is Ayton to really control the boards.
Yeah, Ayton's assist numbers popped to me, like really stood out in his decision making, and actually also, Pete, remember back when you and I were doing Locked On Lakers together, and how mad I was driven watching Anthony Davis pass out of double teams, and how his shoulders were like never parallel to the ground, and how it always led to the Lakers never taking advantage of the advantages that they had gained by getting those double teams. I really like the fundamentals that I see from DeAndre Ayton and his ability to handle those double teams, understand where they're going to come from, understand where the pass needs to get to next. That's been really good to see. Go ahead.
Oh, no, and just like what's funny is he can't seem to catch a cold on a lob, but he's catching those like between 2 dudes, like he's an NFL tight end. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's on the ground and like great hands in those situations. Can't catch it up in the air, but those, like, he's catching it between 2 guys at the beginning of all what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one, I guess, negative that I've seen from Ayton is the athleticism isn't where I thought it would be on the vertical stuff. So that's a bit of a concern with the Luka offense. The other thing that I wanted to bring up before we throw to the second half of the show is Austin, because he was awesome in this preseason, in these games. And yeah, like to be absolutely clear, I guess I've been trying to delineate between training camp and preseason and how they haven't taken those things serious, because I don't think they've taken preseason games very seriously, but I do think that they've checked quite a few boxes in preseason or in training camp. But Austin was the one dude. Every time he was on the court, Luka, we didn't see very much. He stunk
in that last game. Hold on. You watched the dress rehearsal, right?
Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm a little. I guess I'd seen so much from Austin over the course of preseason that I wasn't as worried about what he looked like in the dress rehearsal, which kind of goes against a lot of the points that I've made throughout the show to this point. But like, what do you do with? Because
I thought the playmaking was much better though, and like that was my one nitpick with Austin through the first 3 games was his assist numbers were pretty low, but he was shooting like almost 60% or whatever, and I thought he played really well individually in terms of his shot creation and either attacking out of pick and rolls or getting to his mid-range game, whatever. But the playmaking wasn't quite like it felt like it was a lot of just I'm looking for my own to some extent, which we know is not how Austin plays. And there was some stuff of guys not catching or finishing certain things that maybe could have inflated his numbers. I thought the playmaking was much better in the dress rehearsal game, 8 assists and a few one-handed lasers that I thought the passing was at a level we hadn't quite seen. Obviously, 3 for 15 shooting, 0 for 7 on threes. You'd like to see him put it both together, right? And that's the next level, is doing both those things consistently. Because I thought it was 3 really good scoring shot creation games, 3 subpar playmaking games, and then 1 really good playmaking game, 1 awful shot creation game / finishing game. So yeah, he's got to put it together. But overall, I thought I would give him I don't know, a B+ for the preseason.
Yeah, no, he had an excellent preseason. I'm just saying that both things are true, right? And we can't say we only had a couple of serious-ish games, and that was one of them. That was the most, if we just said that was the only one, right? You can make the argument it was the only one. And he he is going to have a new role, especially with LeBron out. We're taking it somewhat for granted that, you always need one engine of the offense on the floor for it to function at all. Lord knows we saw what it could look like over the course of this preseason when there's not one guy on the floor that can do that, right? And so Austin is going to be relied upon early on in this season. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm just thinking of the Nick Smith, Dalton Connect, Bronny James possessions.
That's brutal.
Those are,
I have a bunch of whiskey behind me, and
we might need it this
those
season.
names in succession make that whiskey really, especially because 2 of those guys are on NBA guaranteed.
She could get some buckets. Yeah.
If you want, he was 2-way player and exhibit 10 and guy at the end of your preseason roster. But no, those are 2 actual NBA roster guys that really struggled out there. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this first half of the episode here. We're going to throw to a quick break here. And then when we come back, we will come back with Raj Chipalu and Khobi Price, as well as Harrison, if there's room on the panel for him. Harrison, I swear this time I'm going to get you, and I see you there in the waiting room. This is the time. It's going to happen. We'll be right back. All right, welcome everybody here to the second half of this here Great Western Forum podcast. We are joined tonight by Khobi Price of the OC Register, Southern California News Group, and Raj Chipalu of Lakers Lounge. He does Lakers Lounge with me on game nights when the Lakers are playing away from home. Raj, we're still awaiting your big announcement there. Also, sorry, Harrison, we ran out of room on the panel, and next time, buddy. Next time, I promise. Pete, Jovan, you guys are still here. In the first segment, or the first half of the show, we discussed training camp and preseason to this point, and are now going to use that to kind of frame our look ahead to the rest of the season. To do so, you guys both and I figured out or picked out one storyline that we are paying closest attention to this year. I'm paying attention to LeBron and everything that swirls around that aspect of the Lakers season. Pete, you are kind of looking ahead in a more macro sense in that you want to see who fits long-term around Luka. And then Jovan, you're concerned about the defense. And Jovan, I'm going to let you start.
I'm still waiting to see some. I would like to see some before we start the regular season.
Maybe if there was a media and coaches scrimmage, there might have been some defense in that. Other than that, I don't know how much we're going to see from the Lakers this year.
Yeah, so I'll kick it to Khobi first. But what have been your impressions of the Lakers defense up to this point in the preseason? And we did discuss, I think DeAndre Ayton has been a bright spot with his playmaking as a drop big and just buying into what the Lakers are trying to do defensively. I think individually, you could look at Marcus Smart in the preseason finale against Sacramento, or Jared Vanderbilt, even Gabe Vincent. But what have been your impressions of the defense, and what are you looking at this week specifically with the Golden State and Minnesota matchups?
Or lack thereof. I've been waiting to say that ever since you guys keep on bringing up defense, just or lack thereof. No, I mean, there have been individual bright spots. You mentioned DeAndre Ayton. I was actually earlier today rewatching parts of the last preseason game against the Kings, and something that really I know Marcus Smart's been in the league for over a decade now, so it's not like I'm surprised by watching him play defense as well as he does. But there were a couple plays that stood out. There was one specifically where I think this perfectly captured the Lakers defense. I forget which quarter. It may have been the second or third, and a switch got messed up, or I think it was pick and roll or whatever. I think the Kings ran Spain stack action, and it's coming off to the right. And Luka calls for the switch, but he's so far back that Jake LaRavia, who was guarding the ball handler, like Jake doesn't know at first, but then Luka's like super far back calling the switch, like in a way that like 2 steps or probably actually more behind the ball handler. It's a late switch at this point, so Jake is trying to go back. I think it was Clifford catches the ball. Marcus Smart comes from the weak side corner where his man is, and he jumps up to contest like a regular contest. Now Clifford, he could have just passed it to the corner. He wound up taking a contested 3. Mm-hmm. That stood out to me just because Jake was like at this point Jake was about to go to the corner to Marcus's man, but he's so far away. Stood out because like you have a botch switch or like a late switch that just left someone.
It was a no shit switch. It was like,
yeah, exactly.
Get mine.
But Marcus kind of saved the play just instinctually. He saved that play. Just I'm gonna contest, and Jake, you gotta go to like I don't even know if he communicated. Jake, you gotta go to the corner. Mm-hmm. That just stood out because there were so many moments in that game specifically where messed up switches, bot switches, miscommunication, lack of communication. I mean, I can keep going. Just it felt like the Kings, regardless of make or miss, they're just off to the races. There were a couple of times Luka would have a layup, and they're pushing the pace. So there are a lot of areas of concern. I mean, dribble penetration is just too easy for other teams when it comes to playing against the Lakers. It's too easy to push the ball up against the Lakers in transition without like real resistance. Individual bright spots, like I said, Marcus has had some, DeAndre's had some. I think Luka, I think Luka's actually had some nice effort moments, competitive moments, but it just hasn't turned or resulted in a defense that you can feel confident is going to perform at a high level once the real games start.
It worries me that, Khobi, your list is too deep. The individual performances for defensively is 2, and Luka tried a couple times. Raj, how nervous should we be?
Yeah, it's funny because I think the conversation around at least the 5th starter was right, that we need a defender in that position. I went on the LFR pod and we kind of discussed Rui versus Smart. And I think that was kind of the conversation of, is there a defender? Obviously, LeBron healthy was the context of that conversation, but I'm not sure JJ sees Smart and Vando as these lockdown defensive guys. I kind of lobbed JJ a Marcus Smart question to kind of, give him some props. I was talking about DeAndre Ayton's pick and roll defense in combination with a guard, and try to lob him a question where, how does Marcus Smart help with that? And he kind of shrugged off Smart and just said, it's a team-wide thing, and DeAndre's going to have to be good as a pick and roll guy with a bunch of guys on the team, whoever's he's playing with. And I think that's what's interesting about this defense. He decides to go with Gabe Vincent, which I'm guessing just rationalizing what JJ's thinking is, I just want speed out there, because he doesn't see that they have, and he's actually on tape saying this with Tim Legler, that we don't have a defender, which is a crazy thing to me to admit. You can't say you're a championship contender and then go out and say you don't have a good perimeter defender. I think those things really contradict. So I found that super interesting. But just from the way he sees defense, I've always thought that this is going to be even with LeBron, by the way, healthy, but without him, I think this is even worse. We're going to be average to below average, right? That's just the defensive personnel we have. And I do think there's offensive stuff there that we can survive, at least until LeBron gets back. But without him, I mean, Smart, Vando is at the top of those lists, and our coach doesn't really see them as guys that, hey, throw this guy on Kawhi, Brandon Ingram, the top defensive guys. Instead, let's throw another ball handler out there so I get a little bit more scoring punch. I get another shooter, and I get some speed with a guy that's going to do what I ask defensively, even if he's 6'2". All right, so that's the part that I think is going to be struggling. And I'm interested to see how that works against Golden State. who I don't think he's gonna bother Steph very much, and I think Ayton's gonna be in a million pick and rolls, and I think Luka's gonna be put in a million pick and rolls, and I'm so interested to see how that looks.
They're getting thrown into the fire against Golden State because Golden State hits on everything that they have struggled with in the preseason. The off-ball switching and help reads at the point of attack with like guys not dying on screens. And then also JJ's repeatedly said that the bigs are not playing up to touch high enough. And if there's one player you need to play up to touch high enough with, it's Steph Curry. So, and then they push the pace, they get out in transition. Lakers are 27th in points allowed in fast break points per 100 possessions. So I'm just looking at this and I'm like, on paper, Golden State basically checks every box that the Lakers have struggled with up to this point this season. And even I thought last year was kind of a tough matchup for them because they could downside and just had a speed advantage. So I'm looking at this opening night matchup and I'm really intrigued because I think we've seen what Luka can do against the Warriors and just what he could do in general. And I think the combo of Luka and Austin should be enough to keep the Lakers in the game. But when it comes down to like final 5-6 minutes, I am a little concerned with what we've seen defensively, particularly for this matchup.
Can I talk about the play Khobi brought up earlier and the idea of a lockdown defender? That to me is only a part of basketball, and it's great. It's a part of defense, and ideally you have that guy. But the play that Khobi described, we call those fix-its, right? From a coaching perspective. And you coach fix-its, and that guys are going to mess up. Guys are going to miscommunicate. They're going to mess up switches and things like that. And you have to read and communicate live and in the action. And that is, I would argue, at least, if not more, what being a good defender means is being functional and communicative, understand the situation, read the game, like beyond the turnovers. That's great and whatnot, but he changed a shot that, from what you were describing, Khobi, was going to be a wide open shot and turned it into a contested one. Now, who was it? Clifford? That was the guy.
Yeah, I think it was Clifford who took the shot. Like he could have swung it to the corner.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like he had an open read in the corner, but part of winning a defensive possession, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to make them make the next decision. You know what I mean? Because somewhere along the way they're going to make the wrong one, or it's going to end up in the hands of a player who's not as skilled at the thing, at that little floater or whatever the shot is that you're forcing him into. But there's a level of when that individual moment or something gets broken down, I understand how to go and fix it. That just because he doesn't have the fleetness of foot to stay in front of the quickest guards or anything like that, the ability to execute your scheme, that's another thing too, is that like the wrangling of those type of players is at least a 2-player job. From a just do your job and execute. Like there were a couple of times that I saw floating around like blow-bys, and the idea of that where he was just icing a screen. They were running side pick and roll, and it is you absolutely cannot let him get middle. If they drive down to the baseline right there, and he was just taking that away. And so that's going to happen. That's part of being a good basketball player, Raj. But like that to me is way more important than the so-called lockdown defender.
Is picking Gabe to be the fifth starter opening night? I know we could talk about whether that's a Golden State specific thing, and we'll see heading into the Minnesota game if Gabe remains the starter there. But to me, I've always kind of wondered if JJ was going to try to present any defense he can, or just lean fully into we're going to try to outscore teams. Gabe, to me, doesn't seem like a solution to staying in front of Steph so much as we're just trying to get another shooter on the court. Khobi, is that kind of how you see that move?
Yeah, I mean, you joked earlier that my list was too deep in terms of defenders or positive defensive players. Gabe's had some good defensive moments. I mean, the interesting part is if you ask me off the top of my head who's the best screen navigator amongst their perimeter players, it's probably Gabe, and then maybe after that Austin, and then pick yours between Marcus and Vando. But I think Gabe's
not
number
Vando.
one.
I don't think it's Vando.
Well, then he's what, 4 then? So, but
I disagree on the screen navigation thing on Vando, by the way. I can't wait to talk about this game. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, okay. So all that's to say, I would probably put Gabe number 1. So, and he's a good defender. His problem is that he's listed at 6'2". I don't know if that's true, but We'll go with that.
I'm telling you, it's generous.
Yeah.
So there are positive elements he brings defensively. He's tough. He'll fight. But yeah, this does feel like JJ even said it. Like they like the shooting that unit, the Luka, Austin, Gabe, Rui, like they like the shooting that they have around Luka and DeAndre Ayton. Like that's a significant part of it. Knowing JJ, he significantly values spacing and shooting, and just the optionality of what spacing brings to your offense.
Look what you're doing to Pete.
I just know Pete's ready to like make a point when he starts scratching that elbow.
Right
no, I just like I just fundamentally believe in different things basketball wise than the people who run the team do. Like I've been alive for like 10, 11 Lakers champions, and every single one of those teams were huge. We had 6'9" Magic Johnson and 7'2" Kareem in the first batch. We had Khobi, Fish was a bulldog point guard.
Ron Harper was a tall point guard.
Right. Like every time the 2020 team was, Khobi would famously say that's the biggest team I've ever seen in my life. And like, yeah, you need to be able to shoot the ball, man. But I do not believe in the fun. And I feel like there's so many forks in the road like this where, look, man, I'm not going to say, obviously you should start Jared Vanderbilt, right? Like there is no obvious fifth starter, right? I agree with Jovan, what he said in the first segment. Like that dude isn't on the team. But I feel like whenever there is a fork in the road of imperfect options, we always go towards the spacing the floor, and then we find ourselves going, Sacramento's BC team goes 8 for 8 to start the game in our dress rehearsal. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Pete, your focus here moving forward. Well, I don't know.
I was trying to keep
great
it together.
Segue.
Right
I don't know.
Awesome.
We could keep on, because the thing is, if we're gonna have we could have an entire podcast, a really, really long podcast outlining why we're concerned about the defense.
Yeah, this whole pod's been negative as shit, man. What are we doing?
Well, that's what I'm going to you for.
I tried to frame it in a positive way of like what's been some of the bright spots, but
oh yeah.
Then Khobi listed 2 people.
All right. I'll give you a couple other bright spots.
We got to 2. No, we got to 2, and then Khobi legitimately started squinting, trying to think of maybe Gabe, maybe.
No, Gabe's defense has been good. I'll say that. I should have said him earlier. I think Vando's intensity seems to have waned as the preseason went along. I think that's I don't think he's been bad. I don't think he's been bad defensively. I think early on he was just there was very much a lot of times we talk about aggressiveness offensively. I think there was a defensive aggressiveness that honestly Marcus Smart has picked up. It's when the Marks has picked up on, it's popped off. It's one of those things that you just watch it, you can tell the guy's just in it. But he's been
dove on the floor in a preseason game.
God forbid.
I'm
so old, man. I'm so fucking old.
Who was the last player that we can recall diving full-fledged out onto the floor the way that Marcus Smart did? I can't really recall very many of the last few minutes.
Dennis, my guy Dennis.
All right, Dennis. Well, but he wasn't on the team last year, so we went the whole year.
Yeah.
Jordan Goodwin.
Pete, your focus, or the thing that you're focusing on this year is a little bit more macro, a little more zoomed out. Longer term view here. Who fits around Luka? I think this is a fascinating one on a variety of levels. Go ahead and outline this one.
So this point is both long term, but it's also very short term because we don't have LeBron, right? And so what are the groups that it's a great opportunity to see what the Luka Austin groups look like, but also several different variations that you can, and that is sort of the long term view of this season too, is that ideally, the best version of this season is you bring back the vast majority of everybody because the season went well and you've got a good crew. Then the other version is you strip it down for parts and you've got 3 dudes on the team and a bunch of cap space. But ideally there's a few guys along the way where it's funny we've talked so much about Gabe because I think Gabe might be one of those guys, from a backup guard type of standpoint on a Luka team. Luka gets Gabe good shots. He gets Gabe shots that is, and then Gabe's going to do his job at that one spot. You do need one guard that is a little on the smaller and quicker side, but is also tough, so that's a possibility. And I'm really intrigued by Ayton. I almost picked him because I think that Luka's going to draw 2 on the perimeter so often that his short roll playmaking and scoring ability and all of that is going to be a huge key to the season. And Could that be, despite the lob woes and all of that, could that be a thing that, it really clicks? So, yeah, man, like, who are the long-term guys? Like, Raj, when you look at this season, kind of what are you looking at through that lens?
Yeah, actually, that's what I wrote about today. I think the Lakers have probably the best team LeBron's been on that's equipped to survive without him, at least offensively, right? Defensively, we just went through the struggles that they're expected to have. But I think offensively, this is a team that will score a ton of points. That's what stood out to me, and that's what was so disappointing, I guess, in the preseason. We didn't get a lot of reps at it. We got 2 games of Luka. 1 game was the serious dress rehearsal, which was pretty unserious when you go back and rewatch it. But I think what I did find is that chemistry with Ayton, I thought was there. Obviously, the lobs were missed, but to your point, I think the short roll stuff, Ayton's going to eat off that. I'm a little concerned when he catches it with under any duress. Like, it feels like physicality really does bother him. But if he gets a clean catch in there, that hook shot is clean. The mid-range is at around 50%. And I think this is a big evaluation for Austin as well, right? I think Austin's second half last year was the 25-5, and the playoffs were what they were. We're seeing the contracts that all are being handed out, these extensions that are coming out, and Austin's kind of connected with this because this is going to be him, next summer. And the Lakers have a big decision to make because Austin's number is probably not in the 30. It's probably in like the 35 plus type of range, at least is what he's looking for. And if that's your backcourt pairing with Luka, I'm super fascinated how you do that. And if that's sustainable, because that's obviously, just putting it best, is probably a below average just defensively backcourt, as well as Luka's going to play, or how hard he's going to play defensively. And both of those guys, I think, are going to be picked on in different ways. But I like the offense on the team. I asked Rui his role, and he said, I can drive more without LeBron, which I thought was interesting. So I guess he can, get to the basket a little bit more, and this floor is a little more spaced. Ayton spaces to the free throw line, which isn't the 3-point line, but when you look at it just as the floor, it does open up some room for those baseline drives where Rui can overpower at the basket. And then you mentioned Gabe coming off the bench as well. Let's see what we get out of the other bench guys. But yeah, this team should be able to score. And if Luka's the MVP guy that we think, they should be able to survive without him. And long term, that, to me, that's what I'm looking for. Rui didn't get his extension. Ayton's obviously on a 1-year deal. And then Austin, how well do those two fit in terms of impacting winning? I think that's something they're going to have to evaluate this year.
Jovan, Austin was the first person who came to mind when Pete told us this was his focal point here for the segment and for the season coming up. I think there's a world where it works. I think there's a world where the athleticism is too big of a concern. Where do you kind of land on Austin's fit with Luka long term?
I land cautiously optimistic. I think there is a world in which it works. To your point, I think a couple things need to happen. I think one, the big number I'm looking at with Austin all year is the catch and shoot 3-point shooting. And I've referenced this before, but going back to the 2022 Western Conference Finals run for Dallas and the 2024 NBA Finals run, Jalen Brunson, 2022, 40+% catch and shoot 3-point shooter in the playoffs. Kyrie, 2024, 40+% catch and shoot in the playoffs. Austin has been under 30% in the last 2 series that the Lakers have played. Granted, small sample sizes, 10 games total, but the playoffs are a small sample size, and you need to make shots off the ball. And we saw Austin go from about 50% of his shots being 3-pointers in the regular season to that number being almost 2/3 of his shots being 3s in the playoffs. So he, especially with LeBron out, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. The usage is going to be up. So it's not the best example of what that's going to be in the playoffs, but he needs to be able to play off of Luka and be a catch and shoot threat. And of course, part of that is attacking closeouts and reading the defense, but he needs to just be able to shoot and hit threes and not have his legs give out the way that they have at times late in the last couple of seasons. So that's the big thing for me is how can those two because I think they could coexist offensively enough to be a really dynamic pairing. I think it's just like Austin has to be able to be a threat off of the ball and make defenses pay for setting to Luka and then being in rotation. And then the other thing is they have to figure out the proper combinations to put around them, because ideally it looks more like the Dallas build of you have a Lively or Gafford at the 5, you have a PJ Washington, you have a Derrick Jones Jr. And if you put those 3 guys next to Luka and Austin, I think that's a really nice 5-man lineup that could work on both sides of the ball. Lakers don't have that personnel right now. I guess Jared Vanderbilt comes close, but I don't think he has the same level of shooting concerns as even a Derek Jones Jr. I think there are a couple of degrees of difference there. So I'm that one is more of like I think more of an off-season question in terms of how you can build the roster around those two moving forward. But in terms of how Austin and Luka fit together, it's like, can they, I guess, function defensively well enough in certain lineups? But specifically with Austin, I think it's like, can he play off of Luka, and can they find ways to make that work together?
Khobi, you've been watching the Lakers here for what, 3 years now. This is your third year covering the team.
Yeah, this will be
and one thing that always kind of I'm always intrigued by is that like introduction initially, and then the consistent reintroductions to the fan base. The Lakers fan base is just different. It's a different animal altogether. And if you say one wrong thing, your mentions are a tire fire for a week. And if you say one right thing, you get patted on the back for like 15 minutes until you're on hate watch, again. So I'm just kind of curious, like managing this third season, you're getting kind of more comfortable in it. And I think this Austin situation is kind of unique in that, like, you will be analyzing this thing. It's a long-term issue here for the Lakers, because that they're going to have to figure out really quickly. He's going to be fetching $40 million offers as soon as this upcoming summer after he opts out of his contract. How do you think you're going to handle, or how do you envision all of this going here? Because that's a tricky one to figure out. Austin's a fantastic player. We just saw the contracts that just went out to Christian Brown, to Aaron Nesmith, to these other guys who like probably fit with Luka maybe a little bit better. Like, how did the day's news land on your doorstep there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you brought it up. I was just about to bring up. I mean, we saw the rookie scale guys. I mean, I was thinking specifically about Dyson Daniels and Christian Brown. Just, I mean, they're fetching. What the Christian Brown was? What was it? 125.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
25 a year.
25 a year. Christian Brown's actually. I mean, I could see the argument people saying that. I mean, he would be the ideal shooting guard next to Luka, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a world. I don't know if there's a world in which he's making an all-star team or two in his career. I see that world for Austin. For Austin. I mean, Austin's the caliber player. Like, I know this has been said, Jovan, I know you said it, but like, we've seen players of Austin's mold be very complimentary and successful next to Luka. Like, he brought up Jalen Brunson. That version of Jalen Brunson brought up Kyrie. Like, we've seen this work. It's more so for me. I think Austin's a really good or even great fit next to Luka. Just straight up, I think Luka actually needs a player like that's a good fit for him. Someone else who can handle the ball, someone else who can take pressure away from him, someone who can play off the ball. It needs someone who's dynamic enough to do both. So on his own merit or his own production, his own skill, like, I think Austin's going to get that. You said 40. I think it's going to be like maybe like the higher end.
Yeah.
I think Pete's
between 30 and 40. I was
watching Pete this whole time.
Were you? This is why I don't do shit on the video, man. It's like,
or play poker.
Yeah, don't play poker. Don't ever go to a casino, play poker, go
no
fish.
Cash.
No, go how's this thing going? Pete's like, oh my god.
Man.
Hope Zoom calls are great for you for work. But no, he's just gonna fetch it off his own merit, his own production, but even with, that's to me that's just almost just what it is. But there's still very much a world in which he's a great fit. To me, whether or not he's going to be a great fit alongside Luka for the long-term future is actually more a reflection of everyone else rather than actually Austin. You can make that work as long as you hit spots theoretically. Let's just say 3 through 4. I'm saying 3 through 4 because offensively they're 3 through, like, Luka and also you're 1 and 2. As long as you hit those 3 through 4 or 3 through 5 rather, that to me that's more about how Austin fits next to Luka more than anything else.
Yeah, it's funny. I was as you were talking and as we've been talking about this, the notion of an Austin type player next to Luka is kind of the exact kind of player LeBron has been looking for basically the last 3-4 years before Austin got there, right? It was I want Russell Westbrook, I want Dennis Schroeder, I want that that search for that secondary ball handler has not gone particularly well for the Lakers. And I do think Austin is a little bit more malleable to fit with Luka than those other guys were by quite a bit, right? Especially in comparison to Russ. And LeBron's season this upcoming year is like my LeBron's season this year is like my focus. And like the other thing that I was thinking about while you guys were talking about the Dallas mold is one way the Lakers could get to the Dallas mold is by sending LeBron to Dallas for some of those players that you mentioned. Not saying that's going to happen, just saying that that's a thing.
Do you want
like
Pete to rage quit this episode?
I don't see a world where the Lakers contend for a championship without LeBron being 100% in. So like Jovan or whoever wants to catch this grenade from me here.
Don't start with me.
Maybe I'll throw it to Raj. Raj is like, how nervous are you about the season that LeBron's about to have here, on and off the court, in terms of his engagement with this team?
Yes, you know me. I hate talking trades in October, November. I just
throw that past you.
Yeah, so we're about to start the season, and real basketball is about to begin. So I'm really not trying to hear about salary caps and first round.
No, you said already.
He said salary cap.
Yeah,
that's a Freudian slip right there. It is salary crap.
It's not really in my vocabulary, but yeah, salary cap, and all that first rounder and type of stuff. No, I mean, it is a little concerning. I think LeBron has been, and Rich Paul and his whole team have kind of sent out very clear messaging of, we're not sure this is the team. I think part of this is he didn't get the extension he wanted, whatever it is, the situation that happened. But again, I think if LeBron returns, this is a solid team, a 50-win team last year that's, I think, got more improved pieces onto it. Again, there's a lot of concerns, but I think this, like, if LeBron comes in and Austin is who he is, like Khobi's talking about from last season, Luka obviously skinnier, less weight on him, better conditioned for second halves, doesn't have to score 30 in the first half and, get tired by the end. I think LeBron can come in and actually be able to have a role, because I think one of the ways to really have longevity through the season is to lessen kind of the playmaking on him, to lessen him having to, he's even talked about bringing the ball up every time is taxing for him. I do think it's really important he becomes a screener. JJ calls these utility plays where it's LeBron, Austin, and Luka working together in some way. I think your offense is capped. Turn-based is a very has negative connotation to it, but that's a lot of times what our offense was last year. I went back and watched every LeBron, Luka, Austin possession during the summer. Don't have much else to do, but a lot of LeBron's shots were off isolation. They were just ISO against switches. Luka as well, Austin as well. A lot of that was just ISO one-on-one. And I think there's just a lot more potential there between those three where their skill sets can kind of merge together. And I think we need LeBron defensively. There's no getting around. You guys listed, I think Khobi listed 2 defenders out of the 15 people on our roster. I think
three. He included Gabe. He eventually got to Gabe.
And I eventually got to Vando too.
Yes. But I think even when LeBron's not fully engaged, he still has the mind of a supercomputer on that end, the experience that you really can't get anywhere else, able to call out plays, read, read what plays teams are running, and then be a help side guy. Because I think it's just a lot on DeAndre Ayton's plate to be like, here, you talked about it, Pete, kind of correcting mistakes. That's a lot of mistakes for DeAndre Ayton. I don't think
that's not the guy.
No. He doesn't have that big of an eraser. It just, he cannot.
He's not AD.
Yeah, he's not AD, right? And he's actually far levels below that. And I think he is trying hard. I think we're in the honeymoon phase. So I expect everyone to at least try hard now. Whoever's first place is whoever you want it to be. So right now the Lakers are the 1 seed in my mind and they have to lose it. But and so I think everyone's going to be on their best behavior, but LeBron has to be a part of this team. There's no other than the T word that I like to use. But I think LeBron's going to have to be involved here in some way. Trade, Anthony.
Okay.
I think LeBron's just LeBron's going to have to be a big part of this team if they want to have title aspirations. But I think they can survive at least, until he gets back in December or whenever it is.
Pete, you and I think this is one of the things that you and I disagree on most, just in terms of our outlook of the situation in the relationship between LeBron and the Lakers. And a lot has been made over the course of this summer, and then his injury happens, and there was speculation about the injury, and then there was the McMenamin reporting about how LeBron's going to be monitoring the Lakers. It's good to know that he's going to be watching the team that he plays for. But like the I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like I do think there's a little bit of smoke coming from that relationship as it nears its end in one way or another. And I do think that's a huge variable going into this season. Even if I think you think I've heard you say on LFR before that like the LeBron, Lakers, and Rob relationship is actually a lot less dramatic than it's made to be. No,
I don't think I've said that. I don't think it's necessarily
like more productive.
Yeah,
maybe not less dramatic, but more productive than it is kind of perceived to be by most publicly. If
sorry,
I'm misspeaking,
Pete's faces are killing me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a night. Anthony, I'm more worried about it than I've ever been. Frankly.
Okay.
And you got to consider what just happened, right? Like the team is very loudly been like, this is a Luka team now, and everything and how they've moved and all of that. And well, this was always a LeBron team. And so how do you think LeBron feels about that? Whether we agree with that or not.
Been on
his
LeBron.
entire life for that many years. And so I think there's a certain amount of like, all right, if it's like that, it's like that, then go have it be your team. Right. And so there's a certain coldness and distance that I pick up on too, for sure. And I'm more worried about that than ever. While I simultaneously, LeBron has always been there when needed to be. And even if it's not even about the Lakers and a matter of personal pride, he's going to go out there and be LeBron James. And if anyone's ever deserved the benefit of the doubt on a number of levels, it's him. You know what I'm saying? And so it's less about like the relationship between LeBron and the front office. I do think there's a lot of incentive for people to blow on that smoke and try to turn that smoke and kindling into a bigger fire. But I just think that's what happened, is that we've just kind of come to the end of the LeBron as the main guy era, and LeBron's experienced that his whole life, and he's dealing with that as he feels like he needs to deal with that. But I pick up on everything you're talking about, man. There's a distance from him and the team, and the crack that you just made about like good of him to watch the team that he plays for, like in previous years, he had the one tweet about Gabe when he was going absolutely nuts to start the season, but it's always been a certain level of encouragement. Like, and so if he's receding and pulling back, like that's an all-time great going like, man, not having all of the juice for it that he did before. And I'm worried about it too on a level.
Jovan, how do you think this plays out?
You're throwing me a loaded grenade here. I mean, I think he's a Laker come April 15th or whenever the end of the season is. Is he a Laker next season? I don't know. Is he playing next season? I don't know that answer either. But it feels like the way things are trending that he would at least entertain the possibility of going somewhere else this summer if he continues his career, and that the Lakers would probably entertain that as well. At least not at the I'm a little skeptical of him re-signing for a max deal. Maybe it's a 1 year, still like high number. That's not the minimum, but I don't see LeBron taking a minimum contract anywhere. Personally, so it's got to be at a certain level. I assume he'd want whatever his max is for next season, and that's just I think going to be tough for the Lakers to hit that number. It does not seem like they're going to want to do that. But I think if we're being honest, like the Lakers, the version of the Lakers that we can envision, that's a 50+ win team, home court advantage, wins a round or two or maybe further, like that is with LeBron James. That is not happening without LeBron James. We talked about Luka and his previous success, but like Kyrie was playing at a very high level next to Luka. Of course, Luka was the driving force, and Luka was averaging almost a 34-point triple-double that season. But like he still has had a sidekick at a very high level, And I think if we're talking about some of the deficiencies with this roster of how many players do we actually trust in a playoff setting, how do we feel about the defense, like having the top end talent can help paper over some of those concerns here. So I think the formula for this team is Luka is the best player in the world, or at worst top 3. LeBron is still in that top 20, top 15 conversation. Austin is at the fringes of the all-star conversation. And then all the role players are hitting their ceilings and buying in, and everyone's kind of firing on all cylinders. But a huge piece of that is LeBron James. And they can get by for the next month or so without him. And fortunately for them, they have a relatively easy schedule to start things out until they hit like the OKC road trip. But it like long term, they need LeBron James, and they need him to play at basically an all NBA level, I think, for them to have a real shot at winning a championship.
I also think LeBron needs the Lakers, right? Like the Lakers need LeBron. LeBron also, I think it would suit his career to end on good terms with the Lakers, whether that's retiring this year, whether that's retiring next year, whether that's retiring next year in a different city. If I think it really matters to LeBron's business interest that he finishes his time with the Lakers here on good terms. I'm going to end this on good terms before I get one more dirty look from Pete. Thank you to Khobi for hopping on. You can find his work at the OC Register, Southern California News Group. Khobi, anything that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
Yeah. You just said it. OC Register, Southern California News Group. My show on Bleacher Report, Lakers Insider, will be getting that back up before tip-off on Tuesday, before the season opener. So can check that out on Tuesday before the game starts. Before what's the first game of the day? Why is it OKC Houston? Even before the OKC Houston game starts too. So that'll be coming back up on Tuesday.
And then Raj, it was my bad. I didn't even I missed your tweet.
That's okay.
Today.
It just went up. It's fine.
Was it while we've been recording? Because if so, then yeah, that's not my bad. I take back my apology. But either way, SB Nation, Raj, you have a piece up at the .com. They barely even let me write there.
Yeah,
for good reason.
SB Nation just wrote about how the team kind of survive without LeBron. Prefacing, not saying the team's better without LeBron, but how they can, survive without him. So you can go check that out. I'll be at my first ever home opener tomorrow. I'm like so excited. I'm gonna have my clothes kind of laid out here pretty soon, and let's go.
Let's go! Oh, that's awesome!
Congrats!
Congratulations, man!
Excited.
That's great.
So
great stuff. No, I'm really excited that Raj is going to be there for as many of the 41 home games as he can possibly be. Shouts to the Lakers for also working with you on that front as well. Jovan, Buha's block, your anything else on that front that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
I have a national show that is going to be starting. It's going to be a weekly national show on my channel, Beyond the Block. We are taking it beyond just the Lakers universe. So first episode is Wednesday, recapping the opening night slate. So I still will be doing some Lakers content for the first episode, but moving forward, we'll be talking about the entire NBA. So be on the lookout for that.
Beyond the Box is like the pinch post.
Yeah. So,
and then
didn't roll off the tongue the same way.
Yeah, it does not. No, Beyond the Block is way better than the pinch post. Pete, LFR pod, and any videos that you're working on that we should keep an eye out as well?
Gonna do a video on Gabe's opening night. Very looking forward to kind of relaunching the YouTube channel. Building out my video library and all of that. So built out process, fingers crossed. And I got the playbacks. You can always watch the game with me and listen to my unhinged. And you can listen to my eye rolls and all of my very expressive things that you don't see on camera. And then just lastly, my dad's going through some health stuff. Got a couple procedures in the next couple of days. Just asking for some Laker love for Papa Film Room. Put some good vibes out there for him.
Absolutely, man. All the best to you and your fam. And then I'll wrap up with the news that I shared earlier on Twitter today. That is that I joined Offside. Shouts to Jason and Kofi and Kirk and Jay and Dave and everybody there who took an interest in me there. I will not be writing anymore, which I am thrilled about. That is no longer a thing that I have to do. But it does mean that my rumor mongering and reporting and live news and stuff like that, that's all going to go in short form video to Offside. So I put the link in there to where you guys can join the wait list for that app as it reaches its beta testing. So, all right, everybody, this has been an absolute blast. We have made it through the offseason officially. This is probably going to be some people's final watch before the game tips off tonight. So I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to watch all of our content breaking it down. And until the next time you guys, we all get together again, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Pete Zayas. That was Jovan Buha. That was Raj Chipalu. That was Khobi Price. Have a great rest of your evenings. Make somebody else's. And I'll talk to you guys next time we all get together.
Bye, everyone.